It's not the fame that raises the biggest questions today. It's what came after. Didier Drogba achieved everything a soccer player dreams of: titles, money, respect on the world's biggest stages. And yet he decided to leave the noise behind. Not slowly, not half-heartedly, but decisively. He left the center of attention and returned to where it all began, to rural Ivory Coast, to open spaces, to the earth under his feet, and to a silence that demands nothing but explains everything. This is where Drogba lives today, far from cameras, far from applause. But what does this decision say about the person who once never disappeared in the biggest moments? Didier Drogba was born in Abidjan in 1978, but stability was never part of his early childhood. At just 5 years old, he was separated from his family and sent to France, too young to understand why closeness was suddenly missing. At 8, he returned, driven by a longing for home. But even this return was only temporary. The family fragmented spatially again, and Drogba had to leave once more. In the Parisian suburbs of Antony, he grew up torn between adaptation and inner restlessness. Soccer wasn't a dream at first, but an anchor. While others stood out early, he remained in the background. No prodigy, no rapid ascent. His body needed time, and so did his game. He only entered the professional stage at 21, too late for many. For him, the beginning of an obsession. This delay sharpened his perspective. Every game became a test, every minute a responsibility. Patience wasn't a virtue, but a survival strategy. He learned to live with pressure without losing himself. This is precisely where the inner toughness that would later carry him originated. Drogba arrived late, but he arrived prepared. The first real breakthrough came quietly. In Guingamp, Drogba started without expectations, without protection. The first season was unremarkable, almost anonymous. But something was building inside. In the 2002 to 2003 season, it unleashed with full force. 17 goals made him visible overnight, not as a talent, but as an immediate threat to every opponent. France began to take notice. The move to Marseille immediately increased the pressure. A club that doesn't forgive mistakes and demands performance. Drogba didn't need time to adjust. 19 goals in one season, appearances with power and determination. Here it became clear that large stadiums didn't paralyze him, but sharpened him. He didn't become a star through elegance, but through his presence in crucial areas. Chelsea followed in 2004, a step that tested him harder than anything before. A new league, new intensity, constant scrutiny. But Drogba reduced soccer to a simple truth. He appeared when games were on the verge of turning. In the 2006 to 2007 season, he scored 33 goals and won the Golden Boot. The circle closed in 2012 in the Champions League final. The equalizer, the penalty shootout, the decisive moment. When everything was on fire, he didn't disappear. He stayed. Today, Didier Drogba's inner attitude is reflected in the place he has chosen to live. Not a city center, not an isolated luxury, not a constant outward gaze. Instead, it's rural Ivory Coast, near his origins. The day here begins without rush, with the muffled sound of the ocean crashing against the coast, and with palm trees that make the wind visible without hindering it. The house is not a symbol of success, but a deliberate boundary. Sprawling, wide open, nestled in greenery, bright facades, long overhangs, open transitions. Inside and outside don't exist separately, they flow into each other. The architecture is subdued, it doesn't seek attention. Movement happens outdoors, between light and shadow, without purpose, without time pressure. Inside, everything leads to one room, the living room. Spacious, serene, illuminated by natural light. This isn't staged, this is lived in. The windows open up to views of greenery, letting in air and silence. From there, it extends to the terrace and the pool, not as a stage, but as everyday life. Quiet in the mornings, lively during the day, calm in the evenings. The body no longer seeks competition here. It seeks balance. And that's precisely the logic of this retreat. When Didier Drogba leaves the house, this attitude continues. Even the cars he drives tell no story of status or self-promotion, but of purpose and rhythm. Nothing seems coincidental, nothing overdone. Every choice fulfills a clear function. The Audi A3 represents everyday life, unobtrusive, compact, quiet. A vehicle that doesn't stand out and fits precisely for that reason. It accompanies daily commutes, short distances, appointments without pretense. Everything feels controlled, manageable, without distraction. With an estimated value of around $35,000, the A3 stands for continuity. It carries the day without dominating it. The Range Rover Sport belongs to a different moment. Here, movement slows down. The view lifts, the space expands. The drive feels calmer, more stable, safer. Not to impress, but to create distance. Conversations become longer, journeys further. With a price of approximately $90,000, this vehicle reflects a more mature phase. Comfort, solidity, and control take precedence over speed. This also explains his garage. Few vehicles, clearly chosen, each with its own task. No excess, no competition. Everything moves at the same rhythm as the life Drogba leads today. With this consistent rhythm, Drogba's relationship with money also aligns. Nothing about it seems rushed or driven. At the beginning of his career, money hardly played a role. His early years as a professional brought him annual earnings of around $400,000. Enough to live on, but far from financial security. This late arrival made it clear to him early on how fragile athletic success can be. The economic turning point came with his establishment at the top. In his best years, Drogba signed contracts that brought him about $15 million per season. Performance bonuses increased this sum by another $3 to $4 million in strong years. Overall, his annual earnings during this phase were around $18 million, always linked to specific performance. Towards the end of his active career, the focus shifted. Short-term contracts in Asia secured him further earnings of about $7 million per season, specifically chosen to conclude his career without financial pressure. In parallel, he began structuring capital for the long term. In 2013, he invested around $8 million in a stake in a gold mine in Ivory Coast. Endorsement deals brought in an estimated $20 million over the years. Today, his net worth is about $90 million, the result of patience, timing, and control. For Didier Drogba, philanthropy is not a reactive pattern or a public signal. It developed quietly, over years, as a natural part of his responsibility. The most visible step occurred in 2009 when he invested approximately £3 million from an endorsement deal into the construction of a hospital in Abidjan. This money didn't go towards representation, but into basic medical care with lasting benefit for the local population. From this approach, the Didier Drogba Foundation emerged. Since 2007, Drogba has gradually contributed about $3.5 million to health and education projects. The measures are targeted, long-term, and free from unnecessary media coverage. It's not about campaigns, but about impact, small structures, stably built, adapted to real needs. Even during politically difficult times, his commitment remained practical. During Ivory Coast's internal crisis between 2006 and 2008, Drogba covered costs for travel, organizing meetings, and supporting local initiatives. His financial involvement was around $1 million. As a UNDP ambassador, he supported international campaigns on HIV, AIDS, and Ebola, with personal contributions of about $800,000. His approach remains constant, helping as a part of life, not as an exception. Away from the stadiums, Drogba's life today is calmer, but not passive. Soccer no longer dictates the daily rhythm, yet remains present as a memory and reference point. Images of past finals, Great moments and shared successes appear on his social media. Not empty nostalgia, but a quiet preservation of a path that continues to be part of his everyday life. His current routine is divided among work, commitments, and consistency. Drogba continues to participate in selected events, maintains relationships with international brands, and naturally moves in spaces where his presence still carries weight. He doesn't seek the spotlight, but he doesn't avoid it either. He appears when it makes sense and retreats as soon as it's enough. A central part of his life remains his family. Together, they engage in social projects, visit communities, and support initiatives that are rarely shown publicly. In these moments, Drogba doesn't appear as a symbolic figure, but as someone who listens and invests time. Physical discipline also remains a part of it. Regular training, conscious movement, and travel create balance. Today, Drogba no longer has anything to prove. His presence stems from calm, not from expectation. This is how Didier Drogba presents himself today, not as a figure of past triumphs, but as a person who has learned to quiet down at the right time. His path led through pressure, expectations, and big moments. But the decision that tells the most about him came afterward. Closeness to his origins, clarity in everyday life, and responsibility beyond the field define his life today. Which side of Didier Drogba impresses you the most in this phase? The athlete who never disappeared in decisive moments, or the person who consciously left the noise behind? Write us your opinion in the comments, support the video with a like, and subscribe to the channel to not miss any more stories.